You really made a lot of news earlier this year. In February, you guys announced that you would be cutting staff by about 40%. Left a lot of questions. Is this sort of the path to travel for a lot of other businesses? Is this just because it was too big in terms of the total staff size, and so you needed to cut anyway, and it was an excuse? What's been true, what hasn't been, and what's the aftermath been like?
Thanks so much for having me on, Lisa. Appreciate it. I think, fundamentally, I think there was a real paradigm shift when it comes to software development in kind of the last week of November, early December. And we saw this moment of coherence where the frontier models got really good with Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.3. And then also the user experience of the tools got really good. And there was almost this binary shift where it became clear that not only were these tools going to be useful for kind of green space, new vibe coding projects, but also working on really complex systems like Cash App's code base and Square's code base. And so we spent the holidays and then January and February really thinking about what does this mean for the size and shape of our organization? What does it mean to actually run a company and operate a company given the paradigm shift that we're going through right now? And that's ultimately what led to the decision to reduce the team by just more than 40%.
Have you been surprised by anything in terms of how the team has operated since February?
There's been a number of things. I mean, I think the spectrum of outcomes was pretty wide, to be honest. A reduction of this size is pretty meaningful. We wanted to be really deliberate to make a bolder move. We didn't want to be in the place where we do a 16% cut and then we have to do another 16% cut and then another 16% cut and kind of have that overhang. And so we were really deliberate in terms of making a move that we thought was right given how the tools were flowing through. I think in terms of surprises, I think maybe surprise to the upside is just that I think everyone is on the tools. 100% of Block employees are using AI tools in their daily workflows. I think there's an energy and kind of an invigoration that comes with that, just the ability for everyone to build. We have non-engineers who are building and committing code to Cash App and Square. Not super complex, crazy things, don't worry, but like I've submitted some pull requests to Cash App and Square, which is quite fun. And then I think a lot of the tools that we're used to using are kind of fading into the background. We have more folks who are just building, whether it's websites or apps or prototypes or what have you, and that's been a step function change relative to 5 months ago. The other thing that we probably could have saw coming is one of the backlogs, at least in March, was just code review and the number of PRs that needed to be reviewed by our technical team. But we've been able to automate a lot of that over the past couple of months here. And so overall, I think it was kind of an upside surprise in terms of the flow through of the org changes.
Is it done? I mean, you said you wanted to do it in terms of just a one-step move, so it wasn't just sort of this drip-drab that dragged on for a number of years. Do you foresee another move like this? I mean, is the technology moving fast enough that you can foresee that kind of change? I
don't think so. We really wanted to be in a position where this was large enough that we don't need to do another large block-wide action like this. And that was one of the lenses that we looked at this through. I do think kind of normal course of business, there's obviously going to be areas that we're investing in, like we're scaling our sales team and our account management team, our applied AI engineering team, we're going to invest there. There might be other areas where we're getting smaller over time, but I don't think we're going to have something like that again. That was kind of the main intent of why we decided to move in this way.
Do you expect other companies to have to make a move like this that just haven't yet, or that are just doing it in slow motion? Do you think this is sort of a path to travel, or do you think this was specific to what Block does?
There's a few different things to think about here. I think in Jack's letter in Q4 earnings earlier this year, he did say he thinks that this is kind of this whole, not just the org changes, but overall just thinking about Block as an intelligence and thinking about our capabilities, our interfaces, the proactive intelligence that we have because we deeply understand how money flows and what's happening in the economy. That is a thing that more companies are going to trend towards. So I think in the coming quarters and years, you'll hear more companies talk about, what is it that I truly understand deeply? What is the intelligence that I'm sitting on top of? What is the world model that we're building to operate our company and to understand customer behavior? And then likely with that, it means that orgs are... The entire concept of org structures right now is such a outdated construct that was invented for information to flow through large organizations. You don't really need that anymore. So I do expect that like middle management is going to compress. There will be fewer layers. There will be fewer pure managers at technology companies. I mean, that's what we're implementing at Block right now, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But also, a given company needs to be ready for this. Like, we started investing heavily in AI in 2023. We built Goose, which is our open source agent harness. We started working on that 2 years ago. We launched it a few months before Claude Code, and we were applying that to our work for years. And so there's an element of readiness where I don't know the extent to which a given company in a given sector is ready to really put AI at the heart of their operating model. And so that's another component as well.
One thing you were saying is each company needs to know their identity or their data source that they specialize in. What Block has been specializing in is, in many ways, a lot of different things, but people who don't have necessarily one paycheck coming from one place that goes to a bank that then gets deposited, and then the flow goes like that. How has that informed how you've transformed Cash App, which was a pretty big outperformer, and how has that kind of played into the identity of Block?
So our purpose overall, and the way that we think about purpose, is like an enduring concept that's never going to change, and that's what unites Cash App and Square and Afterpay and some of our other brands, is economic empowerment. And the way I think about economic empowerment is just letting everyone better participate in, contribute to, and benefit from the global economy. And that's the reason a lot of people are at Block and choose to work at Block. That's why I've chosen to be there for 13 years. To your point, we are seeing a trend, especially over the past several years, where the modern earner is increasingly playing a larger role in the economy. So these are folks who have variable income streams, like they're gig workers, they're solopreneurs, they're entrepreneurs, they're freelancers, they have side hustles, and so you have variable income streams. And there's not a great tool out there, except for Cash App, to help you manage those income streams, where you might have some W-2 income, you might be selling on the side here one day a week, and you might be, driving for Uber or Lyft. And being able to bridge between those cash flows and those paychecks is a really, really important job to be done. And that's where we think Afterpay, which is our buy now, pay later product, and then Cash App Borrow, which is our consumer lending product, are playing a huge role for the modern earner. And I expect that trend to continue.
It seems like right now sentiment's pretty low for consumers, although they're still spending, and it feels like there has been a tightening of financial conditions, at least not if you necessarily look at markets, but if you take a look at just benchmark rates and where things have been. And yet delinquencies just haven't really been picking up, and at least not what we saw. And actually the earnings and the revenues coming from some of the consumer lending was pretty strong. How do you square those two things?
Yeah, we're fortunate because we just have a real-time read in what's happening in the U.S. economy and other markets as well. We do hundreds of billions of dollars in processing on the Square side, hundreds of billions of dollars in card volume with Cash App Card, which is the fourth largest debit card in the United States. I have a dashboard that I look at many, many times a day that's kind of like the health of the U.S. consumer and what's going on. And what I would say is things seem to be quite resilient right now. Like, we have seen an increase in spending at gas stations, but consumers seem to have absorbed that, and so we're not seeing any of this stress or consumer sentiment or what's happening with oil prices flow through to actual behavior. And similarly on the small business side, despite some of the stresses and the headlines that you might read, things look pretty good in terms of the health of spending right now, at least from our vantage point.
So I want to finish with the bold ideas aspect, given the fact that Block was one of the pioneers of vendors. When you go to a farmer's market, you swipe and you tap and all of those different innovations. What's going to be the future iteration that people become accustomed to in terms of payments? I mean, is that something that you're exploring or working on right now?
There's a number of things that we're exploring and working on, some of which I wish that I could tell you right now. I think really where we're focused is the interface, and so the original Square reader, dare I say, dongle, that was an interface invention, which was like, now we have supercomputers in our pocket with the iPhone. They have a headphone jack. We can actually read the mag stripe on the back of the card. I think similarly, signing your name and tipping on an iPad was interface. The green cash pad on Cash App, that was an innovation on the interface. And I think right now, at least what I'm feeling is that the interface for some of these AI tools doesn't feel as cohesive as it could. Like if you open up one of these tools, you kind of see a blank screen and this cursor like blinking at you, and then it requires you to have the perfect question to ask in order to get the answer. Well, especially when it comes to money, a lot of our customers don't know what the perfect question is to ask. That's the whole point. That's the whole reason that they're going in to use that tool. And so where we're leaning in is really two things. One is proactive intelligence, and one is just like natural language and voice. And so if we have a deep understanding of who you are as a customer, we should be able to proactively tell you, like, hey, Owen, you might want to put $100 aside because you have this payment that's coming up. Or, hey, Owen, you run this bagel store, you're almost out of flour or whatever you need. That's the most helpful thing. And then if we can build an engagement model and an interface where our customers can just naturally interact with these tools and with these agents, it's going to feel way more natural than I think where we are right now. So that's where we want to play. We want to keep on investing, obviously on the capabilities side, like moving money, card payments, catalog, inventory, all of these things. But really interface, I think, is where our design team, our engineering team, and Jack have really differentiated, and that makes it really exciting to come to work every day.